And we have talked about these Subarus. They are actually bought with taxpayers' money. We have said time and again that these are goons sponsored by the state, using walk-talkies. No amount of denial by the Inspector General and the DCI will convince Kenyans that this is not the case. And I want to challenge Mr. Kanja. I have respect for him, that he should stand and actually, if he's in charge, because he's also a member of National Police Service Directorate, to say no and dismantle this criminal crowd, because international community is watching. We must tell them Kenya is not an island, and everybody is focusing their mind on Kenya. See the deterioration, literally. So the subject matter is entitled State-Sponsored Terrorism and the Lack of Political Goodwill to Implement the NADCO Report. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us here at this center. On Thursday, November 28th, instead of mourning the unexpected loss of their 23-year-old son, Erastus Duarte, a family and community were forced to flee and seek refuge owing to thugs. Several mourners, including Duarte's relatives, suffered injuries that required medical attention. Others were fortunate to escape the melee physically unscathed. As the dust settled, it was evident that these goons had one purpose in mind: to disrupt, to destroy, and prevent persons whom they felt were hostile to the Kenya Kwanza administration from interacting with mourners in Bibironi village, Limuru constituency, Kiambu County. To compound an already dire situation, area MCA Christopher Ireri and former Limuru MP Peter Mwadhi were abducted and unceremoniously bundled into Subarus by unidentified men before being abandoned near the southern bypass at around 11 p.m. That is for Peter Mwadhi. For Christopher, we gather is still in hospital in Kiambu, many kilometers away from Bibironi village. By the way, these were by hooded men, fully armed with walkie-talkies. I think you hear the testimony of Mheshimiwa Mwadhi. Despite the statements from both the Inspector General of the National Police Service, Mr. Douglas Kanja, and the Director of the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, DCI, Mr. Mohammed Amin, that the chaos was due to quote unquote a lack of advanced intelligence, and that Honorable Mwadhi and Honorable Ireri were not in their custody. Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence is irrefutable. This was a state-sponsored attack and abductions. Honorable Mwadhi is here with us today, and Honorable Ireri is in hospital in Kiambu. They will tell the country their harrowing night of terror with a state-sponsored abduction squad. The Subaru boys. We condemn in the strongest terms possible this state-sponsored terrorism against its own citizens. We are reminded of the words of German pastor Martin Niemöller, very famous. He famously said, and I quote, "First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me." End of quote. So Kenyans, that's exactly where we are. If we don't speak out, will suffer the consequences. Ladies and gentlemen, a terrorist attack on one Kenyan is an attack on all of us, regardless of race, ethnic community, and political persuasion. An abduction of one of us is an affront to all who believe in a free and democratic society. We therefore call upon all Kenyans, irrespective of ethnicity and political persuasion, to call out this rogue regime and in one accord say no, no more state-sponsored terrorism. Fellow Kenyans, we can now attest to the power of our combined protest voices against poor governance and corruption. Kenyans from all walks of life protested peacefully in the courts, on social media, and in print and broadcast media against the Adani Group's opaque, non-competitive, and secretive deals to take over Jomo Kenyatta International Airport (JKIA) and the Kenya Electricity Transmission Company (KETRACO). It was the U.S. Department of Justice's indictment of Adani for violations of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, a U.S. anti-bribery law, that finally forced Mr. Ruto to concede and purports to cancel the Adani Group deals in the transport and the health sectors on Thursday, November 21, during the State of the Nation address. Whether or not Mr. Ruto's embarrassing concession was due to foreign intervention, it is clear that he did not listen to his fellow Kenyans as he later claimed. What is evident and should be clear to Mr. Ruto and his government is that the voices of the people are and will continue to be the most important, as stated plainly under Article 1 of Kenya's Constitution 2010. While we, the People's Loyal Opposition, acknowledge, encourage, and respect people's voices, the victory is by no means complete. The opaqueness in the purported cancellation of the JKI and KETRACO deals needs to be examined. In addition, the Adani Connection, the Social Health Authority (SHA) and Social Health Insurance Fund (SHIF), the Adani needs to be severed immediately. Ladies and gentlemen, in the interest of protecting the well-being of Kenyans and the future of the nation, the National Dialogue Committee (NADCO) was formed following the deaths of 75 Kenyans during the Maandamano protests against the Finance Bill 2023 between March and July 2023. As a co-chair of the dialogue process, I can attest that we negotiated in good faith. However, this regime has demonstrated time and again that they are not interested in justice or in the interests of Kenyans. Since the tabling of the report in Parliament almost a year ago, on December 7, 2023, the NADCO agreement has not been implemented. The few concessions on the cost of living have not even been honored. The matters relating to electoral justice have not been implemented, including evaluation of the 2022 election outcomes. The constitutional and legal reforms to ensure credible elections are still pending. Aggression against Jubilee, because we also had that as a very important agenda item. That's not contained in my statement here. But that was a very important agenda, integrity and commitment to multi-party democracy. And by that we meant that this state-sponsored aggression on Jubilee Party had also to stop. We now know there's even, again, state-sponsored appeal to the higher courts. The Kenya Kwanza regime is clawing back and putting the country on a dangerous trajectory. They are determined to violate the NADCO agreement and the proposed constitutional and legal instruments agreed. Of particular concern are the constitutional timelines for boundary delimitation and the reconstitution of the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission, IEBC. The regime is already breaching the Constitution by failing to meet constitutional deadlines for boundary delimitation. We are already facing, ladies and gentlemen, a constitutional crisis. And I saw the cry by the management of the IBC saying they're seeking an advisory for the Supreme Court. Well, they should just tell Mr. Ruto to implement NADCO report. On IBC, the regime is not interested in the reconstitution of a credible commission. Through sponsored court cases, the process of setting up the panel has been frustrated. We have a simple question for the judiciary, which, as we say, the last line of defense for democracy. Did the Constitution envisage a situation where the commissioners of the IEBC are not in office? Did the framers of our Constitution contemplate a situation where the courts can allow for a dysfunctional commission? The unpopular regime does not want Kenyans to exercise their sovereign authority by electing leaders through by-elections and referendums, recalling unpopular elected officials or members, and properly preparing for the 2027 elections. Kenya Kwanza is preparing to undermine the people's sovereign authority and manipulate the next election. We will, of course, not allow them. The bill in Senate to stop, for example, the live streaming of results is one way of stealing elections, the coming elections. We will not allow them. In 2024, as the country's position deteriorated, Kenya's violent youth, headed by Generation Z, returned to the streets to seek justice for Kenyans. They were confronted with severe force as of 2023. In reality, there have been orders of abduction and extrajudicial killings following the Gen Z revolution. We want to tell the Gen Z and the Gen Wote that we will continue to stand with them against this state-sponsored violence and impunity. We are still unearthing evidence of infractions, including those that contravene international law. The regime cannot understand the just demands of Kenyans cannot be wished away. As the lives of Kenyans become intolerable and precarious, we continue to demand justice. The next mandamanos will resolve Kenya's problems once and for all. Finally, we want to warn the Kenya Kwanza regime in the clearest possible terms. We will not allow A, the balkanization of our nation. B, we will never again allow the rigging of elections. And C, we will continue to resist against oppression, come what may. Thank you very much, and may God bless our country, Kenya. Asante. Before you ask, maybe give opportunity to Mheshimiwa Peter Mwadhi, the immediate former Member of Parliament for Limuru, to tell the country what befell him. As he was explaining to me, even before he says anything, the harrowing experience. And we have talked about these Subarus. They are actually bought with taxpayers' money. We have said time and again that these are goons sponsored by the state, using walkie-talkies. No amount of denial by the Inspector General and the DCI will convince Kenyans that this is not the case. And I want to challenge Mr. Kanja. I have respect for him, that he should stand and actually, if he's in charge, because he's also a member of National Police Service Directorate, to say no and dismantle this criminal crowd, because international community is watching. We must tell them, Kenya is not an island. And everybody is focusing their mind on Kenya, see the deterioration in the rule of law practice in this country. So, Mheshimiwa Mwadi, pole sana. He said that twice, 3 times, anapelekwa kwa bush, alafu anaulizana, na hapa iko sawa? Yani hapo wamalizie hapo. Maximum fear and terrorism. Thank you.